should be disloyalty, it will be dealt with a firm hand of repression. Disloyal, profane, scurrilous, or abusive language.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with Usufruct, and we're delighted that they can be with us this evening. How are you all doing?
Doing all right, thank you.
Pretty good.
Okay, so we have Polly and Tim from Usufruct. And the first question is, what did you hear all those years ago that got you started musically to be where you are today?
Shall I go first?
Go first.
Okay. I started out as a classical flute player, and I began my undergrad years as a classical flute performance major. And I was all about the Mozart and the Cécile Chaminade and, you know, the French classical flute tradition until I went to a Friday recital hour at San Francisco State University, where I went. And there was a gent whose name escapes me, unfortunately, who was playing George Crumb's Macrocosmos. And I had never heard anything like it in my life before. I had no idea you could play the inside of the piano. And my mind being blown, I left there thinking to myself, what is this music? I want to play that music. And that's how it all began.
Wow. Tim, how about you?
Well, I grew up in a folk music household. Listened to that most of the early time. I didn't really listen to popular music or anything very much. But when I was in high school, roughly in the late 70s, we were in a record store in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for reasons that escape me. But they had in the background music, they had Encore by Tangerine Dream, which had just been released. And I really liked that. So I bought that. And then as often as I could afford it, I started riding my bike across town where I was living at the time in Montgomery, Alabama, to buy Tangerine Dream and eventually Klaus Schulze records. So that was kind of my introduction to electronic music. And later, I developed a taste for the more experimental side of electronic music. Part of it was ringing the college radio station and hearing some really very noisy things coming in that really, like Fred Frith and Henry Kaiser improvising and torturing their guitars and things that really turned me on. And I kept up with the folk stuff. I still play a recorder occasionally. I used to play in the early music ensemble in college. But later on, I went to grad school and did electronic music. And then I started getting into computer music and Superclutter, which is we'll probably talk about later. I don't know, but it's a computer programming language for audio. And that's what I do, all the stuff in that I do for Usufruct. And I've been using that for about 15 years now. So,
Okay, well, what is your process for building a piece?
I think either one of us can initiate it with an inspiration. Usually if it's me, I've found some kind of text that I want to work with. And if it's you,
a lot of times I'll have some idea that's purely abstract, electronic, and say, "Oh, here's a way I could process your flute, or here's a sound I've got that could go with something. Let's see what we can do with it." So it's more, she tends to be, for lack of a better word, based on some kind of concept, and I would just be like, "Ooh, sounds shiny," and we start from that.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
But there's always a lot of both. By the time we're done, it'll probably have both of those things, you know. So.
Yeah, we're very collaborative. We neither one of us, I think, tries to really say this is how it's going to be.
We have a detente. We have other scenarios for that, both of us, where we're the boss. So this is one where neither of us is the boss. It's just whatever is going to come out of our collective process.
Sounds good. Okay, you kind of hinted that there might be a piece of gear that you will be using for Wonder Valley Experimental 13 that particularly inspires you. Perhaps that super collider thing you were talking about.
Yeah, I don't know if it counts as gear. It's a computer program and programming language that can really do anything in electronic music that you can think of. You can always, and if he doesn't do it already, you can write code to do it. But it's a lifestyle because you really have to learn how to program it. It's programming in code. It's not like moving little modules around, which I like. But all that said, you never know. I could bust out the Euro rack. I'm having a mod life crisis, and like everybody else in electronic music who's in late middle age, I've started buying Euro rack synthesizers. So, but the Usufruct aesthetic isn't really totally compatible with that because it's a lot of it is turn on a dime, and it's a lot easier to do that in Super Collider in a computer program than on a Eurorack synthesizer. I don't know if who's listening and knows anything about that, but a Eurorack synthesizer's got a million cables, and you can't just change it all to be totally different all in a flash. You can change one thing at a time, but you can't just go, and now it's all very different, which you can do with Super Collider. And I control it with another actually possibly interesting piece of gear, which is the Linstrument. This is an alternative electronic music controller designed by Roger Lynn of the Lynn drum, which you may remember from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a little bit like a keyboard, and it's a little bit like a guitar fretboard, but it's really 256 sensors, and they all sense in 3 dimensions. So X and Y and Z, how hard you push it, and up and down, sort of left and right. And you can map those to, I had to write the software to map it to Super Collider, but after doing that, I can map those 3 dimensions to any parameter of what I'm doing. And I have it set up so that different sections of different pieces, correspond to different controllers there. It's not the usual. Typically, people would use the instrument to play tonal music. It's good for that as well, but that's not what I do for this.
Okay, and what does your name mean? Wait. Yeah. There's another inspiring instrument. Speaking up.
For me, it's going to be the Emerson Robert Dick model bass flute, which is the only bass flute I've ever owned. It was designed by my former teacher, Robert Dick, to be the kind of bass flute that is lightweight and won't aggravate your performance injuries if you have any. And it is designed to be really responsive and good for extended techniques. So
wow.
It's the one I've always played ever since I got it in 2004, and it will be coming with me to the Wonder Valley Experimental 13 zone.
Okay.
Wonderful.
We're doing a bass flute piece.
Yeah, we're doing bass flute.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So what does your name mean? Usufruct.
It's Usufruct. You don't have to go U.
Okay.
Usufruct is...
Or Usufruct.
Usufruct, yeah.
It's Latin. I don't know. It's a Latin word originally, but it's probably Usufruct in English.
Yeah. Yes. But the meaning of it as I embrace it is the right of the people to harvest the fruits of common property. So that means that we love to fold, spindle, and mutilate the public domain.
Wow.
In the most general sense, it is referring to having the right to the fruit of, or the product of a piece of land or whatever, as opposed to but actually owning it, or even renting the land itself. So there's a famous Thomas Jefferson quote, or maybe not famous enough, but which is that now I've forgotten it. We
Held in usufruct?
Yeah, the living hold the earth in usufruct, not in ownership. So that we are entitled to harvest the surplus for our own uses, but we're not entitled to mess with the what brings forth the product, and not allowed to destroy things that the future generation will need, that will be bring forth the fruit that they need. I don't know if he meant it quite as ecologically as I take it, but maybe he did. So that's the idea. Usufruct is the idea of taking the harvest and leaving the land alone. Maybe that's another way to look at it.
Yeah, it's like stewardship.
Stewardship. All these things come into play. Yeah. But the most literal interpretation is that we use a lot of material from the public domain. So that's our very literal interpretation.
Okay. That's wonderful. Public domain. I love it. Well, I'm out of questions. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask?
Oh, beautiful viewers. What brought you to Wonder Valley Experimental Music 13 this year? And do you miss having it at the Palms? Because we sure do.
Of course.
Do you miss having it concurrently with the Incantations Festival? Because we sure do. Yes, I can answer my own question there, pretty much.
I think so, yeah.
Tim, questions?
No, I wouldn't say that I have any further questions, but I'll just second that I would really like to be in Wonder Valley and doing Wonder Valley. I'm sure we all would.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
absolutely.
We're doing the best we can here.
Yeah. We appreciate it, actually.
We
I just
love
want to throw
that you are, persevering and doing the work, whether it was 2020 or 2021. We really, really appreciate you.
Oh, that's so kind.
All the times before, for that matter.
Yeah.
I know how hard you work on this stuff, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
Our Incantations exhibit is still in the cabin.
It's true.
Because of reasons and COVID, we have not been able to go down there and deinstall it. It's just waiting there as we left it.
Wow.
As if for more audiences.
Yes. Well, we hope that everything resolves itself and we can go back to physical spaces as soon as possible. But in the meantime, thank you so much for participating this year. And I think that ends our interview.
Okay.
So have a nice evening.
Take care.
Take good care.